When you want to get off the darkest ground, but gravity pulls you straight down. Earth from a bird's eye view. You should grow feathers and see this too. When you want to get off the darkest ground, but gravity pulls you straight down. When you want to get off the darkest ground, but gravity pulls you straight down. Clear sky. When you want to get off the darkest ground, but gravity pulls you straight down. Earth from a bird's eye view. You should grow feathers and see this too. When you want to get off the darkest ground, but gravity pulls you straight.
Hello everybody and welcome back to the Tour Championship, and I'm very pleased to say that it's still going to be at least a couple more of those frames of the second semi-final, but how many more of those we're going to have to wait and see. It's going to be purely dependent on the performance from John Higgins. So far it has been a very one-sided match there. That, as you can see, 726 points scored by Zhao in the previous 8 frames, but ultimately every single one of those 8 frames has been won by the player from China, and John Higgins finds himself potentially to be quite close to losing out the match 10 frames to nil for the first time in his long and very successful career. Can he try and avoid that? Well, good news for him is that the first session is now finished. It's going to be a bit of a different story, but can he try and finally change the rhythm, make it sort of go in his favour? For now, you always feel like, those pre-match introductions, the talk could always be, a little bit longer than the performance that we're actually going to be seeing there in between Zhao and John Higgins. But, when you write him off there, sometimes he's always there to deliver. So maybe, just maybe, he's going to have a chance to try and come back from being 8 frames down. It's very unlikely to be the case, but at the end point, you have to start from somewhere. Robertson was certainly delighted with his ability to be winning the 7th frame yesterday. Let's see if it's going to be a bit of a different story today, as John Higgins may be able to just get himself slightly closer in relation to the final that he can potentially participate in against Watchalong. That, of course, will right now probably preparing himself for the match against Zhao. But, Xington's played superbly well in majority of those matches, as I say, apart from the first frame. He's managed to make a break of 60 plus in every single one of those, and of course making a wrap with a great break of 104 points at the end. And if you talk about John Higgins' points, then he was able to score around 100 of those in the in the first 4 frames, and then the second mini session didn't really look like it was going to get any better for him until the 8th frame, that he had an early chance of trying winning, but in the end, once again, he couldn't make that one go very far away, and it was a really good chance for Zhao to clear up, which of course he's managed to do with a century break as well. So, is he going to be Well, for now, just make the scoreline look a little bit more respectable in terms of Higgins. Is he going to be able to try and win just a couple more of those frames to start the match and for himself there, certainly get on the score sheet? And then he should be lined up pretty nicely in relation to trying to take the match even further away. For now, it looks like still very much potentially whitewash to be available there in favour of Zhao. I personally feel that, the whitewash probably won't happen because it's going to be a new session, which means a potential good opportunity there for Higgins to try and come back and win at least a couple of those frames. But at the end point of it, it still feels like to me, alternative total frames, under 12.5, it is going to be 114. So, the odds and the bookies certainly feel like it is going to be taken all the way there in favour of Zhao. But let's see if he's going to be able to get 2 more frames on the board before the intermission, because that will of course mean that he's going to be winning by 10 frames to 2 or more than that. Now, just about a couple of minutes away there from welcoming the players onto the arena, and yeah, from Higgins' point of view, of course, it's exactly the opposite of what he would have been dreaming about after having such a good matches against, Mark Williams, but especially Mark Selby. At least he was dominating his performance against Williams for the majority of the match. In the end, it hasn't really worked out, and now it is going to be a different story. And, well, hopefully for Higgins, it's got a couple of more chapters on his way to finishing that book of the Tour Championship campaign in 2026, because for now, it does seem like his defense of the title from 12 months ago is about to come to a very, very sudden stop there. So then the referee is in the house and just welcoming the players in a couple of moments' time. This is going to be an absolute cracker, but the problem is it may only be the cracker for a couple more of those frames. We'll have to wait and see. One thing, though, is, if that is to be the end of John Higgins, then you certainly have to say he's had a really good run on his way to be the one to try and challenge at the Crucible. It looks like he's going to be set up for Ronnie O'Sullivan match in the second round, certainly with the main seeds there. And, Zhao probably is going to be lined up with the idol of China for the last couple of decades, Ding Junhui, that is still just about hanging on to that world number 16. And now it is going to be the huge lineup for the semi-final. As I say, before the match has started, it could have been such a great performance there. Right now, it does seem like we are looking at a defeat of a 4-time world champion. John Higgins now will make his way for at least 2 more frames. And can he now try and put on a little bit of a show for the fans? They certainly will anticipate that, and they know, he's going to be 9-0 down, and he's always going to be a real threat for you to try and deliver. Well, I'll tell you what, it's going to be really interesting to see and to compare the noise of the reception from the crowd that John Higgins and Zhao will be receiving, because still he's managed to really play some great snooker there, and it is the Cyclone Zhao about to try and make his way onto the arena. We're back, yes. The question is, how much longer are we going to be back for? My prediction is it is going to be 10 frames to 2 in favour of Zhao as he now makes his way onto the arena. Higgins has got the ultimate target of trying to achieve, and now Zington will certainly have a majority of the arena to be acknowledging him as he makes his way onto the table number 1. The one and only setup. He's about to await the winner, and no surprise that Zhao is going to be winning by the poll, 95% there. I was going to be down to putting that just a scoreline, but let me know if you feel like in the chat which score you feel is the most likely to be the outcome. As I say, for me, there's no way it's going to be beyond 14 frames there, so I feel like if Higgins does it 10 frames to 4, it's going to be a really good performance from him into the second session, because that would win the second session of 6 frames by 4 frames to 2 so far. The first session was a bit tight against Chris Wakelin there for Zhao, but in the end, he's managed to run away with that one and win the second session by 5 frames to 1. Can he try and complete the perfect setup of 8 frames to 0 as he leads John Higgins? And it is going to be Zhao to get us underway after such a great century 3 hours ago. Let's see if he's still got it. And let's also see the way that he's going to try and approach what could be the potential of just the last 2 frames. Hope to John steal some frames. Yeah, certainly. The thing is, as much as you want that achievement to be great for Zhao, you also feel like Higgins probably doesn't deserve it. You know, it's not like he's been missing every single red that he was trying to go for. There was a sequence of those, but in the end, it feels like he was just probably playing against a much better opponent, a much tougher opponent than him so far. And the fact that he's played, 24 more frames than Zhao could also be a problem. But this is not going to be the start that he would have been dreaming about. And for now, it does seem like 3 hours and 15 minutes have gone without any change there, because Zhao is about to come back to the table with just a single shot there from John Higgins that he's played. And he's now going to be the formidable one next to Zhao name, because he is able to go for the red, which John Higgins has missed, which was a little bit of a weird shot, really, because he wasn't trying to play an attacking shot. Obviously just trying to get those reds to be staying at the lower end of the table. It hasn't worked out at all. Caught that one way too thick, and now it's going to be Zhao that gets himself back to the table here. Could be one of the quickest second sessions of the entire championship, of the entire season, I would say, because, for me, it's probably going to be down to John Higgins actually featuring in one of those in the second semi-final at the International Championship, where he had a 9-2 win over Steve Maguire. And for me, it was like 2 frames or something like that, so something like an hour that Higgins needed for him to be over the line. For now, Zhao has got one more red available to him, and then after, he's going to have a chance to try and disrupt those reds from the black. Doesn't want to be straight, and to be fair, he's not going to be straight here, but it seems like he would have liked to be playing the cue ball slightly further away from the black, because now, the power is going to be limited down to the angle, and yeah, as I say, that was never really going to work out to the extent that Zhao would have liked it to work out to, and 21 points does seem like it'll be the end of Zhao for now. Feel like if you had more of the distance in between the cue ball and the black, then he would have had more angle and therefore more force to try and accelerate the cue ball and generate a bit more of that traction before the cue ball would have eventually reached the main pack of those reds. In the end, that wasn't the case. The room for acceleration was very much limited, and that's exactly why, he got barely a couple of those reds to be heading into the open play. But of course, because of that, trying to do a little bit too much with the spin, and also having the specifics of the position there, forcing that cue ball to be heading basically over the right corner. And yeah, it's going to be down to a safety shot. I know it's 8-0 and he can do whatever he wants, but you need to be just remaining professional there, which I'm going to be very interesting to be seeing that, how John Higgins approaches the next couple of frames. Is he going to be working with a scoreline, or is he going to just try and make it every single frame is going to be a different story out there? For now, it's 21 points there that Zhao scores, and gives the turn back to John Higgins. So just trying to maybe open up the scoring here of taking the red into the middle. He's played that one superbly well, and of course, Higgins is going to be so anticipated to try and win a couple of those frames. You can see that simple red into the middle. Well, it was simple for someone like John Higgins, still was met with great shouts and great appreciation from the crowd. Let's see how many of those points he's going to be able to score here. And now just trying to move on to 200 there, worth of points that he's able to score in 8.5 frames. Ultimately, as I say, the previous split of the pack didn't really work out for Zhao, so he's going to be down to, getting 2 more of those reds, both of them to be at the top end of the table. Probably positioning himself for the black is going to be a better thing, because if you're going to try and do a traditional Stephen Hendry split off the blue, then it's going to be down to probably catching the pink, which is going to be so far away from those reds that it can easily go wrong for you. So, it's going to be down to Higgins. He's going to be moving into the last red, unless he can try and spot any one of those plants available. For now, it does seem like he's about to be taking the red into the right corner now, just playing that cue ball to be heading past the bulk line and getting himself lined up for the yellow. So 9 points as the difference. So let's see what's he going to be here, taking the yellow, trying to play the cue ball through the left side cushion, and surely he's going to try and play this one with maximum power. It's a good line with the cue ball, but a little bit too wide there, and just gives a little bit of a brush. He's not really the Jutrom type of a player, and that shot that he was trying to perform probably required someone like Steve Maguire or potentially Jutrom when it comes to the cue power. and trying to absolutely drill that cue ball into the main pack. Zhao Xington is up someone that certainly springs to mind. And still a really nice shot there from Higgins that he's played, making sure that even though he's only able to score 14 points out of it, at least he leaves Zhao Xington with being snookered on the yellow here, being the cover ball in relation to the reds and the cue ball. So now just having a bit of a wide line there that the cue ball can be taken towards one of those reds. Of course, Xington has to be careful that this is the only red that he can see, which means that cue ball must be heading very close to the right corner, especially with him playing that shot diagonally across the table. He's played that one superbly well. Even though the cue ball is not going to be positioned perfectly onto the ball cushion, that was probably never going to be the reality of an outcome. So now Higgins potentially, as I say, depends on which approach he decides to take, can try and go for a long red into the corner. It's going to be really risky, and at the same time, he needs to realise this is exactly the position that so far he's been giving away for fun over to Zhao Xington, and every single time he's done that, there seems to have been a break of 60 points plus to be coming into the frame. And for now, well, it's not quite what I was talking about, because, you know, of course, it would require Higgins to be missing out on a long red. Right now, he's just trying to play a safety shot, a bit too close with the cue ball in relation to the bulk line. And, you know, despite Zhao having a red available to be taken into the right corner, he probably won't do that for now because of, you know, having the ability to try and keep that cue ball at the top end of the table. But at the same time, you know, if he was to be playing that attacking shot into the corner, then he needs to be sending the cue ball right across the table into the bunch of reds, which sees you pretty much with no chance to be lined up on the colour. So in the end, he decides to try it, whether it was intentional or not, but put 3 of those reds safe. Of course, it's not really going to be a huge matter to either one of those players, because, you know, only 7 points in it, 99 at the table. So you feel like if you're going to be able to score 50 points or so from the remaining 6 reds or so, then you should be lined up nicely for the win of the frame. For now, it's a bit of a bad shot from Higgins. He doesn't want to kiss on the yellow, and this is exactly the trademark position of Zhao Xington, Judd Trump, and Sean Murphy. And I tell you what, one of these 3, he's certainly going to be looking to try and play the second one. What's he going to be? Great queuing required, but you can almost picture this red disappearing into the corner, and I tell you what, that picture wasn't far from reality, because that was a brilliantly cued shot from Zhao Xington. Look at that, the sound, the execution, the placement of the red, and the position on the black. You couldn't dream about a better shot than that, and I tell you what, if you've played one of those in your career, you may as well retire from snooker, because it's about as good as it's ever going to get for you. Fantastic shot there for Zhao Xington. I mean, of course, from an amateur level, you know, doing that if you're a professional, of course, is the opposite of having to force yourself to retire. But for now, you know, he's certainly not going to be thinking about that one too much. He's just turned 29 yesterday, and he's about to be reaching only 1 frame away there from being into another ranking event final, number 6 of his career. And can he try and make it? Lucky number 6 for him tomorrow against Trump. Of course, he's still going to be 1.5 frames away from that, but as I said, it was always going to be a battle down to the first chance of potting the reds. Zhao Xington was able to do that, and now just lined up nicely on for the black, making sure that cue ball is going to be running across the table towards the main pack of those reds. And 31 points as the advantage with 75 at the table. He's probably going to try and narrow the, you know, points remaining at the table down to 51, whilst trying to improve his well, maybe even 43 there, because he's just about to be taking, you know, a really good red away into the left corner. So, you know, he's going to lose a couple of those points from playing on the pink. Certainly doesn't seem like of course, he's not going to be bothered about it, but he almost feels like he doesn't really care about having a 10-0 win against John Higgins, because, of course, last thing that he wants to do is to try and embarrass a legend like John. But, you know, he can't be playing a game where he's not going to be giving his absolute limits. It's not what the sport is all about. And for now, it seems like, you know, it was a bit of a different start to the second session, but the outcome does remain to be the same for now, because it is 3 shots, I should say, in between Zhao Xington and making it a frame win. Of course, it will be a frame ball on the pink if he's going to be trying to play for pink or black here, because that will get him 53 points, or 54 points clear, whilst only having 51 of those available at the table. So then 47, he's going to have a look at the scoreboard. He still doesn't want to be straight on the ping though, because for him to try and make it as clean of a frame win as he can, he needs to be playing that cue ball across and getting behind the red. He's done that, and still, despite crowd clearly having their favourite as Higgins, still going to give a round of applause for the frame ball to be taken. And this red will eliminate any sort of hopes that it is going to be the mission to win 10 out of 10 there for John Higgins. And so far, a 9 out of 9 of performance from Zhao. Can he try and find one more star there that he's going to be the one rated highest than anyone on the Trustpilot? Now then, for now, he's going to be on the break of 47 points, carefully trying to give a nudge towards those reds at the left part of the table as he takes the black away. Another break of 50 plus. Unfortunately, it does look like the sequence of him making breaks of 60 plus is about to end. As he looks at the scoreboard, he's still taking this one seriously, which I feel like Higgins has got no chance of coming back to the table. 43 points left, 61 at the table, but this is probably the longest that Zhao has taken on the entire shot there. And it's only been a minute, so he needs to get an extension on the cue and just try and probably play the shot carefully into one another of those reds. But it still feels like, once again, 61, 18 points out there. Not really see a point of Higgins coming back, but, you could probably say the same thing about the remaining of the scoreboard. And it is going to be... Zhao 54 in the frame. So, sad for the audience of the tonight's session. Hope it's the same then. Oh, wow. That is... I tell you what, Letitia, I felt that. Oh, boy, did I feel that. That is horrible. Oh, that is absolutely painful. Imagine, especially if you weren't from Manchester. Oh, that is nasty. Imagine if you weren't from Manchester, you booked yourself to be anticipating a second session of the semi-final, and you're only going to be in there with a chance of seeing 2 frames. Wow. Boy, that is going to hurt. Oh, I wish you never mentioned that to me, because that is genuinely going to hurt, and you feel for those people. But, the only thing that maybe make me feel a little bit better is that some of them will be staying for the final, and maybe the final will deliver a little bit better. Some of them may have been for the afternoon session as well. I hope so. I very much hope so. And, wow. Boy, no wonder they're that brings the game to a whole different level there, because no wonder they're going to be cheering for Higgins. They paid a little bit of money for those tickets, and it doesn't look like they're going to get loads of value of it. 15 minutes in, only 1 frame away there from the first whitewash in the career of John Higgins out there. Then if they buy tickets only for 1 session of the ball. No. The thing is, Letitia, I do, and they sell tickets for sessions separately. So it's your decision if you want to try and book for the first session and second, but you do it separately anyway, so you can't automatically buy for the 2 sessions. You can try and buy the same seat, or they do have an all-day admission, but it comes as a separate option. You can choose first session, you can choose second session, or you can choose an all-day admission, but... oh boy, like for the stats that I was seeing there, something like 30% of people choose the all-day admission because they feel like if they're going to be heading to Manchester for one of those sessions, they may as well stay for the second one as well. But the other 60-70%, we're with you, and very, very disappointed. Yeah, I mean, that is going to hurt, to be fair, but I suppose it's Suka, and it's the way that it goes for you. Thank you very much, by the way. It's only been 15 minutes, and we already have 300 people watching. But listen, it could only be 1 more frame. But right now, especially after that information to be sort of given to me, and I've completely forgot about it. You can talk about, all the rights, all the broadcasting stuff, all the people watching on the TV. But, of course, you do forget about very much the core of the sport, the fans. And that are going to be present at the Manchester Central. And now John Higgins is going to step up from his chair to try and break off for may well be the last time of the match. Not just for himself, but also for Zhao here as well. Can he try and make it at least one of those frames to get on the score sheet? Surely he deserves it, but... surely he deserves it for what he's done to the game. I probably wouldn't say he deserves it based on what we've seen so far. I know it sounds harsh, but... it's just the reality of the sport. Sometimes you can be outplayed in every single one of those frames there. And it's exactly what happened As I say, number 2 and number 4 are the only times where you could see Higgins to be winning the performance, winning the frame. Apart from those two, it's always been domination from Zhao, and it's about to get even worse because a red, which was left away there by John Higgins after such a good break-off, still going to be queued absolutely perfectly there by Zhao. And I'll tell you what, I mentioned John Higgins' performance against Mark Selby. I mentioned the performance of Mark Williams against Sean Murphy at the Xi'an Grand Prix, but this will be by far the biggest and the best performance of the season by a long, long margin individually. This is a shocker. Don't think John has ever had a whitewash in a longer game anyway. Yes, he's had well, from the records that I could find, he never had a whitewash in the first to 6, first to 10, first to 13, first to 17, or first to 18 match in his career. Well, I'll tell you what, he's going to be 60 points or so away from having that first whitewash. And still, it's a really good shot there by Zhao, trying to force an angle off the jaws of the corner pocket, making sure that cue ball is going to be lined up for the black, about to be taken into the right corner. But I'll tell you one thing, which is, if you want to be positive about it, John Higgins certainly won't be. But now, has Zhao got himself lined up for the red into the left corner, because it could be the shot that ends the match for John Higgins in terms of the competitive point. Well, he is going to be lined up for this red, so it could well be session over in less than half an hour. Although Zhao is way too good. Well, this is exactly the point that I was going to make. What a lineup for the final have we got ahead of ourselves. Neil Robertson and John Higgins are going to be eliminated by potentially having 2 of them to be winning 4 frames out there, and Judd Trump and Zhao are going to be marching on as by far the best players that have seen to be playing at the Tour Championship this season. And Xington whitewash being taken in a final 9-0. I think that was the German Masters of 2022 though, so yeah, he was the first to 9 though, which is a little bit of a shocker because they moved the German Masters to be first to 10 since that point, but you know, it is going to be by far the most comfortable win for Zhao in the final. You know, the one that he had against Williams and Brissell. And also something that you should keep in mind on, you know, Zhao is going to be on a huge quest here. So can he try and stay on reds and blacks for as long as he possibly can? Because I'll tell you what, this is going to be forget about Chipchaya performance at the World Open. As much as he was brilliant, he wasn't without flaws. Forget about the performance of Ronnie O'Sullivan in the semi-final of Chris Wakely, because it wasn't first to 10 and he wasn't against the opposition of John Higgins out there. If he ends up with a maximum, this could be the most complete performance that you could ever dream about in the semi-final. And just as I was about to be dropping the mic there, and he seems like he's about to have a red taken into the right corner. And he's going to have a very different story of trying to play for the black, try and take the white to go all the way, and just try and force himself to go for the pink. So the 147 is no longer going to be on the case. 10-0. I hope the final will be more balanced. Yeah, I feel like we all hope for that, but it's going to have a very different lineup in between John Higgins and Zhao. So it's now going to be, it's going to be a pink mist. Don't know what happened there. And look at that roar from the crowd. I mean, they're certainly going to have loads of stocks invested in John Higgins. But yeah, I feel like he was just trying to do too much there, Zhao. He knew as soon as he hit that ping that, you know, he's about to miss it into the left middle. Scoring zone for Xington, unstoppable. Comments that haven't aged well for Letitia there. There you go. Hall of Fame. You're going to make it there. But to be fair, that ping was one of the worst shots that we've seen there to be missed in the entire tournament. You know, the red from Robertson in one of those frames at the end of the match against Trump certainly was in the contention as well. But, you know, I feel like when you have a 9-0 of the advantage, you can do whatever you want there. Within reason, of course. And, yeah, Pink dated it, yeah. Neil did the ball run, 9 or 10-0. Yes, he's managed to beat Bingham by 10 frames to 0. And Bingham had such a good run at the Players' Championship last season. You know, beating the likes of Trump, Allen. I'm not sure he beat on top of that, but he's had a really good run. By far the favourite to me, because I remember watching that match last season, and I actually thought Bingham was going to take Robertson by storm, and that certainly was my comment. That didn't age well. Yeah, for now, it's still going to be a great chance here for Higgins, but how many of those have we seen already not to be taken? You know, in relation to only 5 more reds to be in the open play at the main back of the being surrounded by the pink spot. He's about to have one more red next to the right side cushion, and also he's going to have one more red to be at the top end of the table. But as I say, the top end of the table red is about to be taken away, and he's going to have ball colours to be spread out really well, the paint to be alongside the left middle as well. So it certainly does seem like Higgins going to be a massive favourite for this frame to be his for the taking. But I do actually want to very quickly have a look at the odds on what does it look like for him right now to be winning the frame. 157, wow. Usually I would say it's a 125 from here, but clearly didn't have such a good run so far. 28 points behind. He needs a total clearance here. Apart from that, it's not going to make it over the line, and certainly he's going to be looking for a break of 60 points plus out there. Hope the snooker gods hear you. Maybe turn 2. Well, yeah. Would be the greatest comeback ever. Well, yeah, listen, if he's going to be down 41 points at the 9 frame to 0, then he certainly will be the greatest comeback ever. The problem is, he'll be the greatest comeback ever for a reason, because it will never happen. So for now, I wouldn't even dream about him even taking that one to the, past the intermission. For now, make sure you win those 3 frames, and then if he does so, it's going to be a great performance for him. But now, this is where the problems start to mount on him. Put one of those reds to be somewhat safe, and nowhere near to be lined up nicely for the black. I'm just going to put it out there. He's going to miss it. Unfortunately, he just hasn't been playing as well as he would take for him to be taking a black like that. Is he going to be able to make it? Just about rolls this one in, so it's a good start that for John. And you can see the acknowledgement from the crowd straight away there. It's a really good shot there from John. Probably something of the biggest shot that he's managed to make so far in the semi-final. And the problem is, he's made his life a little bit more tricky than he could have been whilst putting those 2 reds to be on the right side cushion. Missed a simple ping ball. Zhao just wanted to save Higgins from the humiliation respect. Nah, I wouldn't feel like that, because, the brain of Zhao clearly doesn't work like that, because you could see he had absolutely no reaction on his face. I was actually anticipating and looking at what he was going to say or do to John Higgins at the end of the first session, and the bottom line is, he can't do anything. You're here for yourself, and you need to make sure you play about as well as you can, and, there was no, apology or anything like that, which it shouldn't be. You're competing to win. You're not there to play, you're here to win. And it's exactly what he's managed to do in the first session. He's had a really good first frame as well. And now it's going to be a run for John Higgins to try and perform. He doesn't want to be straight on this red. He doesn't want to be straight on this red. Well, to be taking it along the side cushion, but also having to play this clearly for the blue. 41 points each. Higgins is going to be about as close as he's been to winning a frame here. And he's taking that red pretty well. Overrun for the blue slightly. So still, he's left those 2 reds to be very much left until the end there. He's got one more to be in open play. And then he's going to be looking to try and play in behind of the last of those reds. He wants to be straight on this red though. And he hasn't got it. So this is going to be a little bit of an issue. And now you want to get the lot exactly. So 10-0 is going to be an achievement there from Zhao. But also, like, in a competitive sport, you can never try and take chances like, I'm going to give a frame away for charity. Because you give a frame away, all of a sudden, you give 7 away. Just ask Robertson in his English Open match against Weezer. Just like ask O'Sullivan when he was off to a breeze there against, Chipchaya. Or Robertson, 7-2 ahead in the, the final of the Saudi Masters. Now, this could not have been played any better, and surely, right now, 6 more shots or something like that needed for Higgins to try and take it. He's already managed to have the biggest break of the entire match here. So the red needs to be on the wrong side of a blue, and he's needed to use the entire pocket, but at the end of it, the red does drop in. Now, he's got one more shot to try and make it towards the finish line. Carefully playing this blue into the left middle. Make sure the cue ball gets the bounce off the left side cushion if he wants to. He decided to play that without having the cushion to be used at all, which still works as long as you're not going to be straight on the yellow. Seems like he's managed to avoid that. And, 18 points now being the difference. It's going to be 20 with the yellow. So the green is going to be frame ball. And I tell you what, that will taste sweet for Higgins. And doesn't want the brown to be in the way. And it won't be in the way, surely. Now there is going to be a frame on the board and 10% of the incredible comeback to be completed. You'll never get to 100, but for now, he had to get somewhere, and Higgins is certainly able to try and get somewhere at the end. A break of 64 points and counting is going to be the first frame that he gets on the board after 9 of those to be lost. And that's the reason why having a whitewash in first to 10 is going to be such a difficult thing for you to accomplish. And yeah, I'm certainly looking forward to seeing John's reaction. You know, it's going to be a very different one to Robertson, I feel like, but still, he's going to give something away there, because you would have felt that, you know, if he was going to give a huge, giveaway to the crowd, he would have done it as soon as he potted the brown. Right now, he's about to pot the pink, and it's going to be very reserved, but because he knows it has been a little bit, well, quite not as much as he could have offered, as you can see there. Huge ovation from the crowd as he makes the break of 79 points, not going to bother about the black, and just smiles there as he walks away to his seat. Exactly something that Robertson should have done to me, and exactly why John Higgins is going to be one of the classiest players on the tour. He's not going to be making, himself to be stealing the spotlight. He's going to try and put his head down and try and make the scoreline twice or maybe 3 times as respective as this. And I tell you what, if you last till the intermission, he's going to make a real game out of it. Honestly, and I do mean that because, if he makes 9-3 and, back at the intermission, wins another couple of frames, 10-5 will be an absolute glory for him, especially after being 9-0 down and having, Zhao Xington to be lined up on the pink into the middle. Right now, Xington probably would feel like Higgins, because Higgins had a couple of those occasions beforehand for himself where he wasn't able to, convert the first opportunity of coming back to the table into a frame win. Now, Zhao Xington knows what it feels like, and probably going to see Higgins to be coming back to the table with a whole recharge and a whole focused Zhao Xington. Because one thing I will say about Zhao, and I will put it out there, the reason why I say Higgins will probably have one of the best 3 frames of his career if he does win those ones and make it 9 frames to 3, because every single time Zhao Xington loses a frame like this, he's got 2 options. The option of him staying where he was is not longer going to be valid. Either he's going to play the game which is going to be down to 100% of his level, or he's going to drop down to 50. If he was playing at 75, now he's about to step it up and make a horrible kill. Go for that killing shot right now, or it could potentially be a bit of a drop down, and this is exactly where Higgins would have had to come in earlier in the match for him to make a real game out of it. But for now, just make that scoreline look a little bit better so that he wouldn't be remembered for ages for this one. I'm glad you got one anyway, Clarence. John is, yeah, agree once again. The crowd is still going to be letting their feelings to be known about the outcome of this match. Hopefully they're going to be seeing, well, as I say, especially after realising that some of them would have actually paid to be seeing at least 8 of those frames. Well, not at least 8, but what's it going to be? So, well, I suppose you never know how many frames you're going to see in the evening session. It's always going to be down to 2 being the lowest, but now we've seen 2, so at least it's going to be 3 out there. I feel like if you get to 6, I'll be absolutely happy with that one. Because, that way Zhao Xington still gets himself through to the final with Chom, which is going to be a hugely anticipated fixture. But at the same time, at least Higgins manages to come back with a little bit of pride there left on his name. For now, it's going to be Zhao Xington to try and break away and break off the reds here. And Higgins now has got the task of trying to survive until his break off. As I said, last time around he was breaking off. He looked like he was going to be. Next time he was going to be rising from his seat was to shake the hand of Zhao Xington. Right now, it's not longer going to be the case. And he's still going to be in a fight to try and make well, not going to say a game out of it, but make the scoreline look a lot better. Although, it seemed like the run of the ball is not really going to be going in his favour. Gets a little bit of a brush of the yellow as he plays the shot diagonally towards the ball cushion with the cue ball. Gives 4 points away to Zhao Xington. And now the cue ball is going to be coming back to the player from China as well. I would say it's not really going to make a difference. I'm not sure if Zhao wants to try and put the cue ball back where he was, because it wouldn't really matter anyway. And just feel like it's going to be down to him to try and figure out on what to play here. May actually be putting Higgins back in this position, because he's thinking about it, I'm thinking about it, and I genuinely can't find a way of him trying to get any benefit from this position. taking the plant towards the left middle wouldn't really work out. I mean, there is a plant, as you can see with the camera work, aimed right at the right corner. But it seems like Zhao is about to just drop the plant and just play a safety shot, which, fair play. As I say, that's a sign to me that he's going to try and step up his game and make sure that you got one of those frames wins for you. You're not going to get any more freebies than that. And, I would expect him still to go for the kill. Question of time, but we all want Higgins to fight. Yeah, exactly. John's arm will free up now. There's no pressure really unless he gets up to 8, but it's near impossible. Yeah. No, I feel like if he gets himself down to 9-6, because the whole thing about it, he will never be the favourite until the decider, or 9-8 or something like that. But if he gets this far, he may as well become the favourite, because you would clearly expect, with all the respect, but Zhao Xingtong will have to be playing the worst snooker of his career for him to be losing, every single chance there, because you cannot technically prime Stephen Hendry, prime Murray O'Sullivan. No one in the snooker world could play frame after frame after frame without giving a chance away, especially to someone as attacking as Zhao, which is what I was saying. Even when he was 6-0 down, Higgins needed to rely on the drop-off from Zhao Xingtong. For now, it doesn't seem like he got it, but we're about to have another foul shot from Higgins, and this is going to be a chance given away to Zhao Xingtong. Didn't really need to be doing that, and now, as I said, goal for the kill there from Zhao, and he's going to have the red lined up at the corner. I feel like the first 3 or 4 shots are going to be super important for him, and the first shot is going to be missed. So this is what I said. I'm not going to say it's going to be game over for Zhao, because, he's going to be crumbling now and lose 9 frames on the bounce, but he wasn't missing those reds at any point during the previous 10 frames, apart from missing that pink, as I say. And now we've seen that happen. I will say one thing, if anyone could come back as John, well, we'll see. Listen, I'm not going to say that because, if you could do that, he would be 10-time world champion. I'm sorry, but, there needs to be a little bit of a sensible level on that. But, for now, Zhao Xingtong finds himself a little bit lucky there, because as much as he was playing for a shot with the blue and the pink, in the end, he's still going to have a safety shot to be given away to Higgins. That seems to have played that one pretty well, as long as he has managed to cover the red next to the left side cushion, which he hasn't, which probably puts that down to 0. And you can see 2 out of 3 long pot success for John Higgins. Why on earth has he only had 3 long pot attempts in 10.5 frames that we've seen? Same thing was happening with Robertson, man. I don't really understand it. Safety of Higgins has been really good on some of those occasions. I'm not going to say that he's been brilliant throughout the entire match. And sometimes, for it not to be brilliant, it's enough for Zhao Xingtong to be left out with a long red to be available. As Higgins plays a horrible shot there. Catches the blue full ball, leaves the cue ball to be onto the blue ball spot. Is he going to be another chance? One thing that Higgins can't afford to be doing, as I say, Zhao missed that red into the corner, which was something that we haven't seen beforehand. But if you're going to leave him a chance after chance after chance, inevitably he'll just say, well, I'm going to go for every single one of them, because if I haven't left him anything after the previous one, why should I try and change the approach here? He's about to go for another red, and he's about to miss it again. So the crowd will certainly try and get on the back of John Higgins. Once again, 2 out of 2 there. Misses from Zhao Xingtong. What a stuff like that is only 3 long pots. Yeah, I mean, exactly. What a very, very strange stat. 10.5 frames for you to have 3 long shot attempts. That makes it pretty much 1 across 4 frames. 1 3.5. More than less than 1 shot that he's taken per 3 frames there, which is incredible, really. Now, is he going to be taking this red into the middle? He's about to make this one in. I'll tell you what, you always feel like, thankful for him doing it now, but you always feel like, why could he not have been doing that a little bit earlier? But this is the thing about snooker. It's very difficult for you to try and shift momentum. And even now, it seems like he's playing those shots which he's not necessarily comfortable with. And he's about to have both of those reds to be blocked off there. The first one was to try and force that cue ball away from the pink. He hasn't managed to do that. And the red that he would have had available into the right middle is now going to be blocked off by the black. So once again, as I say, the previous break was really good there from Higgins because of how much it meant to him in terms of finally not making sure that it's not going to be a whitewash. Still, it's certainly not going to be free-flowing, although He is going to be if he plays shot like that throughout the entirety of the match. Brilliant long range, powered that one into the pocket and played it about as close as he could afford there towards the front jaw without actually touching it at any point during that shot. So brilliant there from Higgins. And I tell you what, we've probably seen more from Higgins in the first couple of frames here than we've seen in the entirety of the previous 8. So, is he going to be the ping to be taken here? Because you can try and play the cue ball into the bunch from underneath and just rest on the red to be taken into the right corner. Well, he's tried to do that. It hasn't worked out. And still, he was, to be fair to himself, he was leaving very difficult shots there to be played. And yeah, that wasn't too close there. The pink was never going to drop into the corner. I've seen Zhao go to bits before. He doesn't have a BC or game, just very good or very poor. As much as it's very harsh, it's very true. I absolutely agree with that. It's not just Zhao Xingtong, it's Chang Binyu, it's Wu Yize, and it seemed like, I know I'm only naming players from China, but those 3 are the outstanding players of the season. The likes of, well, you could put Lizowski in there, but he's sort of different category there, really, because I feel like Jack hasn't really got a big game anyway. But he's, yeah, to be fair, he can go into the same group as those 2. Because, you know, Zhao Xingtong, like, it's harsh, but it's true. He doesn't have a B game or a C game, which, you know, is extra impressive why he's able to be where he is right now as he takes the red into the corner with a rest shot. Gets himself positioned for the black. Definitely writing too slowly. This is unexpected and... yeah, well, listen, it's one of those things out there. Yes, we're saying yes. And Chang Minyu there, once again, I feel like it's a little bit early to be saying the same thing about him. But if you watch that final against Wakelin, I mean, he was trying to do the things that weren't working in the previous 10 frames until the end. And it felt like, why would you be doing that? Like, with all the things that you can be doing as a snooker player, why on earth would you try and stick blindly, like a tram or a train, try and stick to the rails, whatever happens? I mean, like, it's fine to be doing that if you're world champion, but it's not really fine to be doing that even if you're Wu Yize, because it's exactly the thing that he was doing against Wakelin. By the way, I mean, I've just realised that I've seen Wakelin to be featured in both of those arguments there. You know, and it's just really weird performance that we've seen from Wu at the first round of the tour of the second round of the tour champ. Was it the first round? Was it the first? Yeah, it was the first round, wasn't it? Yeah, it was a, well, horrible match from him. You know, the first session was such a good performance where, despite not being clinical at sometimes, and it does seem like the story is about to end here for John Higgins because, you know, it was always going to be down to just that shot to try and split the pack, and Zhao Xingtong seemed like he's managed to come away with a perfect outcome, although he will need to be playing 2 more extra difficult shots there in terms of, you know, slightly more difficult than the previous ones. But he's played the first one superbly well. He's going to be lined up for the green or the blue to choose from. Surely it's not going to be even a consideration worth of taking. Well, it seemed like he's about to choose the separate colour from me. I mean, surely he doesn't have the angle on the blue here, so why on earth would he not try and take the green away? It's a little bit weird to me, but anyway, I suppose if it works for him, you know, if he gets that cue ball to be slightly beyond the blue ball line, then he should be lined up nicely for the red to be taken into the corner. He is 29 now. Yes, he turned 29 yesterday. Ronnie's same, really. It's great or awful. Unfortunately, right now, yes. And it's a huge shame because we've seen that at the Crucible where you had glimpses of that against Pang Jung-soo and Si Xiaowei, and then he just managed to have two sessions like that against Zhao Xingtong where he was awful. This is going to be close to the front jaw, by the way. Just about makes that one in, and still gets himself lined up nicely for another red to be taken. But yeah, right now, I wouldn't really say it's a fair comment on Ronnie usually, because, you know, he's managed to get the most out of his A game every single time there, so he didn't really need to have a B game or something because he was so good and he was so consistent in his A game out there. But now, when his game is not quite at a level where he used to be, you feel like he should have gone for something else, but, you know, it's probably a little bit too late for him to be a learner driver again, so he needs to be getting past that period, and, you know, he's not going to be trying to learn new things, is it? I mean, it was bad enough for him when he was giving the interview about trying to find himself out of those snookers. And Zhao Xingtong makes a little bit makes life a little bit more difficult for himself than he would have liked. So it's a break of, I don't know why I'm on different points here. 62 here, 54 of a break. So now needs to be taking the red nicely into the corner, and he seems to have done so. Just needs to find that gap in between the brown and yellow, and look at that for a shot in terms of the way how badly was positioned for the red, and look at the way that he's managed to come away with a fantastic shot on the blue about to be taken here, and just about as easy as it could have been. Make sure he's not going to have the mistake of trying to hammer the blue into the middle, you know, aka Judd Trump when he was trying to get over the line against Robertson. Hopefully Judd puts up a fight, was hoping for a win, but Zington may be too good right now. Let's see, listen, it's a very similar performance that Robertson and Higgins have put away against, you know, Zington and Judd out there. So now, as he takes the match ball into the corner, I'll tell you what, the positives from John Higgins is going to be down to him winning that 10 frame, and you feel a little bit sorry for the audience. Only 3 of those frames for them to be seeing, but at the end, it was simply too good from Zhao Zington, and there's not a lot for you to say in defense of John Higgins. He's tried to put up a fight, but it was too late, and he hasn't managed to succeed with that anyway. As I said at the previous frame, and that wasn't even the A game of Zhao Zington, but when he has got a loss of a frame like that, he always seems to step away and become absolutely crap of a player, or he delivers a performance like that, which is still going to be rated as 8 out of 10 of a frame, despite having an early miss, and maybe even having 2 of those, to be fair. But the position at that point was covered up. He was able to take this one away, and now it's a break of 77 points and counting, made that 84. So he's still going to be looking to try and make it another break of a century there. And you can see Judd Trump alongside Sean Murphy and Mark Williams that are going to be labelled as red. Now just carefully take this red away, judge the power to perfection in terms of trying to roll that red in. But now he's going to have to try and take it with the green to make that cue ball go all the way. The green is going to stay out, so it is going to be a break of 85 points at the end, and you can see no reaction there from Zhao Zington, and only good words there said by John Higgins. He knows he was in his game, and he knows that he was too good there from Zhao Zington. It is the Cyclone that moves into the final, and now it is going to be 10 frames to 1 of a win. And you can see there at the end, as much as the crowd were cheering on for John Higgins, they certainly are going to appreciate the performance that Zhao Zington has put up for them. And now, well, what's it been then? How long has the second session been? Has it been an hour? 45 minutes. Not bad. Not bad, not great, but listen, it's one of those things. When you win the first session 8-0, you're always going to be looking at those type of performances out there, and it's exactly what happened. Zhao Zington is going to be joining Judd Trump in the final, but think about positives first. It is going to be super disappointing for John Higgins to be losing out like this, but we are going to be lined up for 10 to 19 frames of absolute brilliance, one match away from making it to the main draw of the Crucible. In relation to just, you know, it's going to be a real test for those 2 players, and it's going to be a real practice room for them to see which one of them is going to be looking more fresh, more modern, and playing better snooker with nicer technique before the eventual and potential meeting at Sheffield to try and make it the second crown. Is he going to be the 36-year-old, the world number 1, or is he going to be the 29-year-old, the world number 4 now, as he moves past John Higgins and Mark Williams? He was going to do that anyway, but now he's about to be chasing down Neil Robertson and try and find himself to be the man that he's going to be looking at the world number 3 spot. Remember, he's going to have all of those ranking points to try and gain. Robertson will have a couple of those to defend. So we could well see Zhao Zington to be moving into the world number 2, unless Wilson is going to be able to maintain that crown, or at least get himself through to the final. For now, poor John, I'm glad he avoided the whitewash. Same too. The audience deserves it. And I think about 2008, 2013, Ronnie was at his best. Yes, but we have to wait and see. It is going to be the showdown of Zhao Zington against Judd Trump. It's the best possible final that we could have dreamt about on paper. And I'm going to say this on paper. We'll wait and see on which of one of those 2 players will be able to turn up with a better performance, and which one of them will win it and take it all the way to be claiming the Tour Championship win. It's not going to be John Higgins. He ends his title defense in a defeat of 10 frames to 1, but is it going to be 6 out of 6 for Zhao in his career, or is it going to be second win of this season for Watchalong and move on having 2 ranking event titles alongside the likes of Zhao and being the only 2 players that of course have managed to win more than a ranking event this season. For now, thank you very much for everyone tuning in. Feel free to be hitting like on the stream and certainly subscribe to the channel. Watchalong against Zhao. Does it get any better than that before the Crucible? Showdown is tomorrow. For now, thank you again for watching and we'll see you around for the battle on the base.